All right. Are we all good?
Yes, it looks great.
Okay, perfect. Sorry about that. Okay, so today I will be talking about learning cataloging strategies and priorities when starting a new position and having to learn a new ILS. There we go. So just for a little bit of background about me and my institution, I am the only trained cataloger, and we have a pretty small library team, including myself. We have four librarians. So as the only cataloger, I'm more or less given the freedom to do with the catalog what I will, which, as I'll talk about later, is both a blessing and a curse. Interlochen Center for the Arts, if you're not aware, is an arts boarding school during the school year and a summer camp, obviously, in the summer, which means our user base is a little bit different than a lot of other institutions. Our main users are ages 8 to 18 and our materials are mainly meant for performance, less focus on research. Interlochen has had multiple migrations over the past decade. From 2017 to 2023, we were using the Evergreen ILS, which was administered by the Traverse Area District Library, the public library system up here in Traverse City. And in August 2023, Interlochen Libraries migrated to Koha so that we could handle all of the cataloging ourselves in-house and things like reports and all of that wouldn't take so long for us to get. And previous institutions that I've worked at have used OCLC WMS and SirsiDynix Symphony with workflows, as I'm sure many people in the room are familiar with. So some of the challenges with me having to learn Koha, my predecessor really didn't leave me much training material, especially on historical practices and local practices. Nobody on the staff was doing anything more than copy cataloging, and the most they would do in an editor, in the MARC editor, is just add a field for our local call number if it was different from the LC or Dewey one in the record. So I had to figure out all of this on my own and learn how to adapt these historical practices with the new MARC fields from the past decade or so that have come out. Like they used to use one of the 500 fields for specifically instrumentation before the 382 was put out. And over the migrations and things, these didn't stay within the work forms that we were using. So they ended up getting erased. And the old librarian is actually a volunteer with us still, and he's rather annoyed that those fields are now gone. But I'm working on a project mentally, at least, to try to put the 382s back in for some of our older records. And of course, Koha has a completely different appearance and layout. I included a screenshot here. I'm not sure how well you can see, but it's entirely web-based and has these handy little modules that link out to, all of the different things, and they actually have real labels, not just an icon that you can't really tell what it is, and then you look close and it's actually a pair of binoculars with a little plus sign next to it. Like you can actually see what this says, like batch item modification. Okay, great. It's not just a little pencil icon. So that really does make a difference in being able to learn and apply a new ILS. But also, there have been a lot of new possibilities, both for me as a librarian and also just as a cataloger. I'm able to now make my own reports using SQL, and also Koha has a great community of people writing reports and putting them up on a database library where you can pull them and modify them to your own needs and needs of your collection. As a super librarian permission level, I'm also able to customize all of the search indexes, which was a great boon for me specifically. It's a little bit selfish, but I customized it to favor the call numbers more because all of our stuff is in accession number order. So when I'm doing things like weeding or stacks maintenance, stuff like that, it's really helpful for me to be able to just type in the call number if something doesn't have a barcode. But like everything, Koha also has a lot of limitations. Our installation doesn't have the authorities module enabled. There is one. I haven't quite figured out how to turn it on or if it's even necessary. I'm used to doing a lot of local authority work, but it's hard enough to get our users to use the catalog at all and not just come to the desk and ask us for, whatever Mozart piano sonata they're looking for. So I don't really know if there's a real need for that, unfortunately. And Koha is also still in active development. It's really stable, but it's an ongoing project with updates fairly regularly, probably about once a month for a lot of things. But there are also some quirks where, like some of the batch modifications, it's a little bit, you can't modify certain values specifically. I haven't looked into the back end of it. I know it's really complicated, but unfortunately, there are some limitations that you have to get around and just adapt your practices to. And also, again, learning the needs of a new collection and user base. Most of the music that circulates here is chamber music. It's for our students to perform, as well as the unique needs of all of our ensemble materials as well. We have one of the largest collections of ensemble music in the country, if not the entire world. So, we have to also make sure that the needs of these materials are met so that our ensemble librarians and other employees can find them to access to prepare for our students. Yeah, so again, I think that really means that there's little need for local authority control as much as it hurts my heart as a cataloger and someone who really enjoyed doing authority work. I'm unsure of how necessary that is for us. So some strategies that I used in learning Koha is, of course, finding existing published documentation. Koha has a really great wiki, and Koha, as well as Bywater Solutions, who maintains our installation, puts in really, really good videos explaining specific aspects or just, what all the possibilities are that you might not have considered, and just explanations of things that make it much more clear than, clicking a button on the screen and seeing what happens. Also finding all of these communities of practice. There's a Koha listserv, there are Koha forums, and even yesterday I met another person in MOUG who uses Koha, and that was, great. So we can find people, like-minded people who are, using these systems and learn from one another. And also communicating with my colleagues upstairs in the academic library has been really, really helpful because focusing on the music side of things, there are some aspects of the catalog that I might not see that are much more common for monographs and things like that, that they handle outside of my purview. As always, don't be afraid to ask questions. More than once, I'm sure I asked the director of the library a really dumb question about Koha. Like, how do you change the due date? Or how do you add an item type? How do you do XYZ? And, as a librarian, it feels like I should be able to figure these systems out without any help. But, these are complicated. It's new. You have to be able to, don't be afraid to ask questions. Everybody's here to learn, and we're all here to help. And also, again, like I've talked about, consider and prioritize what your users need. So things like authorities and browsing support aren't really as necessary for our collection as they are for others. Our stacks are closed. Everything is in accepted number order. So browsing, at least by call number, isn't something we really need. And again, our users are mainly children who don't really understand what the library catalog is at all, much to my chagrin. So some of the changes I've been able to enact in Koha, I've been able to adjust the search index, like I mentioned, redo cataloging procedures and actually document them instead of just, letting them be what they are and then leaving when somebody leaves. This includes doing all of the cataloging before processing an item. I was able to modify the import rules to delete 856s and automatically change the 776, I think, because Koha really struggles with linking out to other sites with URLs. It really doesn't like it. And I was also able to use the report function to create shelf lists and accurate inventories of what all we had. So this helps a lot in collection development as well as, making and weeding and stuff like that. It's been really, really great and really fun to attempt to learn how SQL works. Again, so I was creating local documentations or practices for documentation for our local practices that are more than just how do you import a record? So with that being said, that's about all I've got, and I think we have a little bit of time for questions. So thank you all.
Thank you, Tarren. That was great. We have so far have one question from Mark Scharf about authorities. He says, do you have communication with folks who formulate written programs for recitals?
Mm, I I guess I could, but all of that is sort of separate from the music library. Our archive and archivist handles all of that, and it's just basically on request only that people have access to recordings. So it's not something that's actually in the library catalog, if that answers your question, Mark.
Well, I'll intrude here. The background is that I worked for 13 summers in Interlochen back
Mhm.
in the day when there were practice supervisors. And one of my responsibilities was to actually put together recitals for the junior and intermediate campers. And so I would have to formulate programs. And so I actually used the music library. If they were playing a Bach Gavat, I used
Mhm.
the music library in order to identify, well, it's this Bach Gavat and not that Bach Gavat. Or
Okay.
if the title that on their piece was Sonata in C major by Mozart. So I used the music library for those purposes. I was just curious to see whether and that as a cataloger, you might not, be aware of that. I was just curious um, whether there's any sense of, oh, well, we really need to identify what little piece they are playing. I was just
Yeah,
curious.
I haven't had any communication with them, but if they wanted to, I would be more than happy to help. It's something that was really interesting about my time at IU was having to navigate all of that stuff. So yeah, definitely.
Any other questions? Or do you have questions for us, Taryn? I mean,
Oh, I think I'm all good, I think. So happy to be here and thanks for all the recognition and all of that.
I'll just hop into Tom's comment. Jay Berry worked for me as a practice supervisor when I was there, so I'm not
Really?
surprised that she was involved with that. Um,
Yeah, I just had coffee with her this morning.
Yeah, well, I got to see Jay a couple of I got to see her a year ago back in September. I came up for a visit. I also had a comment in the Q&A, so I'll just let you have a look at that.
Oh, thank you.
sorry, I totally forgot we had a Q&A section. Ha! Amanda Scott asks, have you found any good resources for SQL for beginners?
I have actually. I can post it in the chat. I've used it quite a bit. Actually, especially when I was first learning out, I really don't have any background in any database sort of stuff in any practical level, so I was really just copy and pasting. And I can post a couple of the really helpful ones in the chat that, really help me at least with the shelf list sort of things, just pulling item numbers and bib record numbers and all of that stuff. So I can definitely post those in the chat. There's a lot out there, and it's really helpful because it's SQL is confusing, at least if you ask me.
Oh, SQL. See, you can tell how much I use it. Ha! And then we have a question from David Floyd. How are you tackling documentation as you explore this new ILS and environment?
Yeah, I'm definitely making sure that I'm actually writing stuff down as I'm experiencing it and not just, letting stuff go by the wayside. This is my first position out of grad school, and thankfully at IU processes were pretty well documented and there's a lot of hands-on training, but especially as the only cataloger and everybody else is like, well, I just, use Z3950 to just import the record and call it good from there, whereas I'm doing original cataloging. So, making sure that I'm documenting what I'm doing and what I think is important for me and the collection.
Great. Thank you. Well, we are all proud of you, Taryn, apparently. Everyone's saying good job for writing down what you're doing.
Oh, shucks, thanks.
We will all learn from your example. Oh, there's sort of a question from Deb Morris. So Koha doesn't provide tutorials other than a wiki? Question mark.
Yeah, they have a wiki and then I'm trying to see if I can find it here. On their like Koha tutorials page, they have maybe I just have to go to Koha to find it. They have like training videos. Let me go to this.
So
Let's
there are videos. Okay.
yeah, let's see here. Yeah, so like there's like this, it's through Bywater Solutions, which I don't know, I'm assuming they host most Koha instances. I'm not exactly sure how it works, to be honest. So they have like all of these videos, like how to import records using Z3950, what the mark editor looks like within Koha, how to add items, stuff like this.
Oh, interesting.
They have them for all of the various, this is what the home screen looks like. So they have them for all the various modules and stuff like cataloging tools, circulation, even more circulation, patrons
And
and
do they
managing.
have a way for you to ask specific questions
Yeah,
to them?
yeah, we have a like dedicated, like, I don't really know what it is. I don't do much communication with them, but there is like a dedicated like contact page and contact person. And there's a Koha listserv that's, managed by both the Koha staff and developers, as well as just people who know more about it than I do, at least.
Nice. Okay, we have a question from Emily Colucci. Does Interlochen have any plans or a need to redo or upgrade their classification system?
They started a couple years ago trying to convert at least our study scores to LC, and they got about less than 25% of the way, and then decided that that was way too much work because we have a well over 50,000 like things in our chamber collection, and then fewer study scores and stuff like that. But it would be so much time and labor to go through and redo all of this to make it LC when, again, our stacks are closed. The kids don't even really use the catalog, and unfortunately, a lot of them don't even really use the library, and they're always really surprised that, oh, you have all of this stuff? Yeah, we do. That's like the whole point. Anyway, I'm sure we all feel that. We all feel that struggle. But yeah, we currently don't have any plans to. I definitely don't. I don't want to go through the effort of trying to create a brand new shelf list for everything in LC. Definitely not Dewey either.